أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We praise Allah for all the blessings He has given us, and the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our Master after the Prophet, the Commander of the Faithful, the Prince of the Believers, the Protector of the Prophet and His message, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah, we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear respected brothers and sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Kareem to all of you, and inshallah this will be a blessed month for you and your families. The theme, the virtuous community, or the vision of a virtuous community, is one that should be near and dear to all of our hearts and minds. When we're going to be going over these topics every night, I want us to be reflecting about our position as individuals and collectively as a community, and at the greater scale as humanity. What is our role in today's world? When we look back to the prophetic traditions from the beginning of time, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, and the sons of Adam would come, and prophet after prophet and messenger after messenger in our theological tradition, what was the role of the community? And how did we interact and engage? There's a lot of things that we're going to be covering in these nights, and inshallah, I want us to make this as personal to us as possible. Even though we're going to be mentioning a number of stories, even though we're going to be going into verses from the Holy Quran, and we're going to go back into history, I want us to try to apply this to your life, to my life. Because in this reflection, in trying to understand what was the expectation of God, of His prophets and His messengers, of the family of our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of their followers, of their community, of their nation, what was their expectation of us? As the ones who are recipients of the message and of the many lessons and traditions that we look back at, is it something that we're merely looking at as a tradition or a heritage, or is this a living practice in our lives? And how do I formulate my worldview, my narrative, my paradigms? What are the paradigms that I'm looking at when I'm trying to push myself forward and understand what are my goals and objectives? As an individual, it has to start from me in order for me to actually look at a collective movement within my family, within my community, and within my society at large. How do all of these things come together? What's the worldview that we're looking through? I'm going to start with a story. A young lady, her name is Maryam. Maryam is a college student that is going to school at the London School of Economics. So Maryam is very focused, very smart, very intelligent, and she's visionary in the sense of where she wants to see herself in the future. She wants to go to the academic track. She wants to specialize in global economics, understanding political economy. She has this vigor about herself in applying herself as much as she can in her studies. And she's been like this ever since she was a kid. She was always the straight A student, the kid that was trying to be the best, and usually ended up being so. So Maryam, right now, she's 21 years old, and she's at the London School of Economics, and she's about to graduate. Then the world gets hit with COVID. So we're experiencing this live. Classes are shut down. Schools are shut down. Everything is going more so virtual. And she's away from her family. She's studying abroad. And she's trying to cope. She's trying to make sure that she's doing everything that she needs to do. And she's staying home. She's practicing social distancing. And she's trying to stay focused on her studies and complete her coursework. the same time, she's also applying herself to wherever she has time here and there. She's reading books, she's reflecting, she's you know, exercising. She's trying to take care of herself, trying to stay healthy. One of these days recently, before the holy month of Ramadan, Maryam is scrolling through Instagram, and it wasn't necessarily anything that got her attention to have the following reflection, but it was just a series of things that she was being exposed to or not exposed to. She was scrolling through Instagram and she just stopped, closed out the application, put her phone on the side, just looked at the ceiling and asked herself, what am I doing? Where am I going? And where did I even come from? And not like where did I come from, like how many of us who either come from immigrant families or immigrants ourselves, that hey, where are you from? Like if let's say I'm traveling to the West Coast in the United States and someone asks me, oh, where are you from? I'll say I'm from Detroit, or I'm from Dearborn, I'm from Michigan. And the question is, no, where are you from? And like, oh, okay, I'm from Lebanon. Not that Maryam is Iraqi in that sense, but where is she really from? What are her roots? Not from an ethnic or racial aspect, but from an intellectual one, from a spiritual one. These are questions that Maryam was asking herself after, of course, being in this state of self-quarantine and social distancing. And naturally, she's having a lot more time to herself to reflect and think about these things. I want us to do the same. I want us to take a lesson from Maryam and essentially try to start practicing further questioning of ourselves. Where are you from? Really, where are you from? Where did you come from? Where are you now? And where are you going? And the whole study of the vision of a virtuous community, where we're going to be going and understanding from God's word, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking to us through the Holy Quran, and then seeing the examples and what took place throughout history from the immaculate personalities that we take lesson from and try to emulate, we're going to see, where do we fit in this bigger picture? Where do we fit in this vision of why did God create us to begin with? We'll start at chapter 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, from the Holy Quran, in verses 30 to verses 32, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at the angels and he says, "Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa." I'm going to create a viceroy for myself. I'm setting a viceroy on earth. They respond, bewildered. Oh Allah, are you going to set something or set someone there that is going to create mischief, havoc, and bloodshed? When we're here praising you, glorifying your sanctity, and glorifying your name, they were just bewildered, right? Imagine the scene when you're reading the verses, and I encourage you, anytime we're referencing the verses, try to have the Holy Quran, a copy of it digitally or physically with you. Look at those verses and see this conversation between God and the angels. The angels are bewildered. Why? Because if you look into some of the books of history, theologically, there were creations and early inhabitants of Earth that had experiences, devastating experiences of havoc, mischief, bloodshed on Earth. And if you wanted to learn a little bit more about that, I encourage you to look at the book God's Emissaries by Sheikh Rizwan Arustu, an excellent book from Adam to Jesus. It's a study of looking at all of the prophets in the Holy Quran, from Prophet Adam alayhi salam all the way to Jesus, and he speaks about the early inhabitants of Earth. So the angels are bewildered. Why are you doing this? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replies simply, I know what you do not. So then God turns to Adam. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ. So he turns to Adam and he teaches Adam the names. After some time, he goes back to the angels and he asks the angels, if you're truthful, then tell me these names. The angels say simply, in humility and humbleness to God, oh Allah, we only know what you've taught us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turns then again to Adam and tells Adam to tell them the names. Adam recites the names. And he tells the angels, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the angels, didn't I tell you that I know what is between the earth and the heavens? Didn't I tell you that I know what you do not? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through this story in the Holy Quran, one of the wisdoms behind it, he's setting the scene for us to understand what's his relationship with Adam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear from the very beginning. The creation of Adam is to set a viceroy on earth or a representative on earth. So we go back to the question that Maryam was asking herself in her own reflection. Who am I? What am I doing? Where did I come from? Where did I really come from? And where am I going? That's something for us to really take a second and contemplate. In our positions as human beings, we weren't placed here in vain. Our existence and our presence, no matter where you are in your journey in life, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is, and we're going to mention a number of different traditions, narrations, and stories that continue to point to this, in which we as human beings, we have an amazing purpose, and it's directly connected to God. That our Creator didn't just put us here merely as a mercy, but there was a plan. Out of God's love and mercy, we exist, and we're here, and we have the potential to show God, this is what I'm made of. This is what I can do. Whether you're going to be receiving the reward of that, or if you're neglecting of that, or neglectful of that, and you're going to be receiving the punishment out of God's justice, then that's something that's for us to choose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us and allowed us the space to do as we wish and as we please on this earth. But know that there are consequences. Pleasures fade away and the consequences will stay. A narration from our Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. You do have the free will. You and I can do as we wish and as we please, theoretically, practically, but there's consequences. Consequences that you and I put in place amongst ourselves, between ourselves, within social contract in human society. But at the same time, we have that accountability on a spiritual level with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that out of God's justice, He ensures accountability for humanity. So that any experiences that we have on earth, we realize, hey, we're accountable for it, and we're going to be answering to God. When you look at the 5 fundamental or foundational beliefs, usul al-din, that we have, you look at Tawheed, the oneness of God. You look at al-adala, the justice of God. Nubuwah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets, messengers for us so that we know His message and He speaks to us through them. Out of His justice, because He is just, He wouldn't leave humanity without divine guidance. That divine guidance is then further implemented through who? The Imams, who secure as successors of the prophets and guard that message and preserve it. And then finally, out of His justice, there's that accountability, al-ma'ad, that we're going back to God, that we're going to be resurrected, and we're going to answer for the things that we did. So a lot of times when people look at the experiences that people have on earth, the injustices that take place, the harm that people are dealt, whether it's by circumstance, it's by someone intentionally harming another person, it's the family that they grew up in, the neighborhood that they grew up in, a war-torn country that they lived through. None of that is going unseen. All of that is accounted for. And the way you and I engage with those circumstances is accounted for. The way you and I look at the crisis that we're facing right now, COVID-19, right? How are we interacting? How are we engaging? When I'm looking to make sure that my supplies at home are fully stocked, my pantry is fully stocked, and I have all the food that I need, I have all of the hygiene supplies that I need, I have everything that I need. Before that, did I think to check on my family, my relatives, my colleagues, my neighbors? that just very simple interaction, that's accounted for. And of course, you need to take care of yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that each person is responsible for himself and his family. But at the same time, these are the situations in which our character truly comes out. These are the situations in which we know, are we really being the individuals that we want to be? Are we on the right track to building that community for ourselves, no matter how small or large? The community, even from this concept of a virtuous community, there are multiple spheres and there's multiple layers. It starts from the individual. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran that He does not change the condition of a people until they change what's within themselves. So this harakah, this movement, this journey that we have, it starts from within. It starts from you and me. It starts with me reflecting, me contemplating, and this merely is that. I'm contemplating and reflecting, and I'm sharing my contemplations and reflections and learnings that I've had from people that I've benefited from books that I've read, from research that I've done, and then we're sharing it together. And then hopefully you can share with me, I can share with you, and we can continue to do that as an individual and yourself as an individual, having that movement together. Then that expands to your family. That expands to some of the circles of influence around you. That expands to more social circles and beyond and beyond and beyond. If you and I made that commitment to ourselves that I want to be the best version of myself, the highest version of myself, and I'm going to do that day in and day out, then naturally there's going to be a movement across the spectrum, across all of us, where we're going to see change. Why? Because it started from you and it started from me. There isn't this idea that just collectively or just on a high level, society is going to change and better itself, unless the parts that make up society better itself. When we're looking at our purpose, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set the scene for us and told us why He created us. He promised this to the angels. Now, there's a concept that we have called rising through submission. In this idea of us returning or acknowledging and realizing our purpose and acknowledging where we want to go. You and I want to be successful. You and I want to be happy. You and I want a good life. What does that look like? Unless we identify where we came from and what our purpose is, it's all going to be scattered. And some of us may experience this. Whether it's the example of Maryam that we mentioned earlier, who she's a solid student. She's great. She's phenomenal. I mean, top, London School of Economics, studying what she needs to study, focus, straight A's. She's great. But she's still flipping through, and this is something that's experienced by many people across the world from different backgrounds, different experiences, that they feel this. What am I doing? If the purpose is attached to something that is finite, you're probably going to be stumped somewhere, somehow. And what do I mean by that? If, let's say, I want to go to school and I want to pursue a career and become a professor, become an attorney, become a physician, become an entrepreneur, a real estate developer, and whatever it may be. And that attachment to that idea is with a purpose that is, I want to make money, that's it. I want to see fame, that's it. I want to be better than the people that are around me, that's it. Any kind of thing where it's coming to material or comparison to somebody else, trying to have what other people have, and just stopping at that, you're going to get stumped somewhere, somehow. When the purpose is attached to something that's not finite, that's infinite, then you're at ease. Why? Because I'm connecting myself to the designer, the architect of the entire system. Now I'm tapping into outside of the system itself, outside of the operating system itself. I'm going now at the very highest level. I'm tapping into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm asking God, show me the way. Show me where you want me to be. Show me where I'm at. And this is something that in our own reflections we can make. You and I, today, from the first days of Shahr Ramadan, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, show me where I am, show me where I was, show me where I came from, and show me where I'm going. And if we open the Holy Quran, we're going to see a lot of them. And when it comes to the very purpose that we're talking about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran why He created us. In addition to us being viceroys on earth, He tells us that I've created the ins and the jinn. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْإِنسَ وَالْجِنَّ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create humans, man and jinn, except so that they may worship me or serve me. Now imagine when we reframe our paradigm, reframe our worldview into I'm studying, I'm working, I'm researching, I'm raising my family, I'm befriending, I'm associating, I'm reading, I'm writing, and I'm connected to an infinite source. You're going to feel tired. You're going to get exhausted at times. But that reminder that nothing is going in vain, everything is accounted for. God sees me, and He's the infinite source. When we make this small shift, this small identifying source, identifying that the source is that rather than all the other things which naturally we grow up understanding or grow up acknowledging, or not necessarily acknowledging, but grow up with that this is your goal. Go to school, get an education, get a good job, work hard, and retire. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, if it's just that, then you're selling yourself short. Within our worldview and our narrative, as faithful individuals, as people that are looking at Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, we see people that were successful on all levels. We see individuals like the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was a merchant, a businessman, who married a businesswoman who was the top of her of the field of her industry, and they together were able to build a nation, were able to build a community like no other. But at the same time, everything that they built, the empire, let's say, or the infrastructure, the foregrounds of the empire that they built, was based on what? Was based on faith, was based on spirituality, was based on acknowledging that we are spiritual beings. For a time being, we have this physical presence that we're in. We have this physical domain that we're in. And we're going to be really good at it. We're going to be very successful at what we do. We're going to have jobs. We're going to have businesses. We're going to have enterprises. And we're going to be excellent at them. But we don't lose our purpose. We don't lose the sight of things. In the earliest days, when the Meccans came to Prophet Muhammad and told him, listen, just leave all of the stuff that you're doing, the message that you have, and just let us be as the Meccans, the Meccan society, let us be. Because what the Prophet was doing in enfranchising minorities, enfranchising women and young people, enfranchising groups that were otherwise oppressed by circumstance in society, in Meccan society, Muhammad was coming and saying, black or white, same. Young or old, same. Woman, man, same. Equality, equity, justice across. That the best amongst you is the one who is most pious. Most pious? Slaves were looking at that time, slaves were looking at Prophet Muhammad and saying, tell me more. Women were looking at him. Young people were looking at him and wondering, what is this new information, this new wisdom that's being told to us? And they were flocking to him. This was changing Meccan society. They told him, listen, just please stop preaching, stop talking about this, move away from this message. We'll give you whatever you want. And Prophet Muhammad has been narrated what famously said, if you put the sun in my right and the moon in my left, I will never leave this. Imagine being promised the riches of the world, the power that the world has. They told him, listen, take whatever you want, just stop. You give me the sun, you give me the moon, you give me the whole world, I won't. Why? Because as khairu khalqillah, the best of God's creation, the one who realized his role as a viceroy of God and the last messenger and the last prophet, and being one who everything that he did was in that concept and that paradigm of ubudiyyah, that everything I have is in servitude to God. Once we move into that paradigm or worldview of ubudiyyah, that we're doing things in servitude of God, we become suddenly so much more pleasant to one another, so much more kind to one another, so much more thankful of the things that we have, that even with all of the things that we're experiencing and so the maybe the nuisances that we have during the COVID-19 pandemic, I suddenly become so much more appreciative. Why? Because I'm turning myself constantly to God. I'm praying on time and realizing, wow, this feels great. Not from a feeling, but from a state of mind. That this spirituality that I may be experiencing, you're experiencing, we're together going to be experiencing the holy month of Ramadan, it's not a feeling that you have inside, it's a state of mind. It's a presence. It's a commitment to action continuously. That prayer comes, I pray. Why? Because I know this is the most important meeting that I have in the day. And this is something I'm trying to do myself. Inshallah, we can do together. This meeting, you have a meeting with the top client in your industry. You closed on that client. Now you're meeting with them. All right. And this is your first meeting for your business transactions moving forward. You're someone who's thinking, hey, man, I closed. I'm great. I'm in a great position. Now I got to start doing the work. You have the relationship with God. The transaction is closed. All right. Now meet. Talk to him. Have that conversation. Allow yourself to have that conversation with God. On a daily basis, he's giving you 5 different meetings, and then even more if you want some. But these ones, you just got to make sure that you have them down packed. You have them and you meet them on time. And what's amazing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that he even tells you, listen, if you get busy and you put some other things ahead of me, it's okay. I'm giving you a window. I'm giving you, pretty much as much reasonable time as you may need. And that is the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I was having a reflection with one of my mentors recently, and it was during the month of Sha'ban, just the month that we just experienced right before Shahr Ramadan. And one of the nights, there's a prayer where you pray 2 rak'at, and there was a recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha and I believe Surah Al-A'la 10 times in each rak'ah. If you did this prayer, which took a total of maybe 20-25 minutes, if you did this prayer, you were forgiven for 1,000,000 misdeeds, given 1,000,000 good deeds, and then raised 1,000,000 levels. I believe that was the narration. This is found in Mafatih al-Jinan. Now, for a moment, I sat back and I thought to myself, wow. I just spent, let's say, if I did this, I would be spending 20-25 minutes to complete this prayer. And now I got 1,000,000 misdeeds, sins that were forgiven, 1,000,000 good deeds added, and then I'm raised 1,000,000 levels. And then there was one of the other nights where that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build for you a 1,000,000 houses or palaces in heaven. Now, some people, they think they get a little skeptical, like, really, just this prayer, and you're going to give me all this? And it made me think, why would I be skeptical? Why would I be skeptical of Allah when he created me, created everything, and gives me endless opportunities, made me his viceroy, made me a representative, allowed me to see the representatives in action and how they're supposed to be immaculate in their behavior and their conduct from all the prophets and the imams. And I'm going to have a second doubt about him forgiving me when he's able and he can do anything that he pleases. Literally, our opportunities in life are endless. No matter how far you get off track, you can constantly turn back to him, constantly go back. Every day there's another opportunity, especially when it comes to these holy months. In this month of Ramadan, we're looking at ourselves and we're saying, man, we're blessed to experience this again. We're blessed to have this again, and even building towards the holy month, and then after the holy month, and then on and on and on. Every single day you wake up and you see another opportunity for yourself. You and I, brothers and sisters, we're going to have low points. We're going to have issues. We're going to have trials and tribulations. We're going to have points where we feel distant from each other, from God, and even distant from ourselves. But don't be like those who forgot God so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them forget themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the whole Quran, don't be like that. Don't forget about God and then you're going to forget about yourself. Because if you forget about God, that's essentially you moving away from what you were created for. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants each and every one of us to know who we are, what's our role in our community, in our society, what's our role within humanity, how do we engage and interact with one another. And during this era of occultation that we're experiencing, and inshallah we're going to be talking more about this throughout these nights, during the era of occultation that we're experiencing, where our awaited Imam, Imam al-Mahdi, Hajj Jalal Moughania al-Sharif, he's an occultation. What relationship do we have with that occultation? Beyond the relationship that we have with the Imam himself as our living proof of God, what is our relationship with the occultation itself? Do we have an impact on it? Do we affect it? Are we waiting for him? Is he waiting for us? What's going on? Is this something that we think about? And is this something that we have as a part of our lives? Is it something that is just maybe talked about as something like a story or a concept, theoretical, hypothetical? Or is it something that you and I can truly, really engage with and interact with? But what is it contingent upon? It's contingent upon our paradigm. It's contingent upon our worldview. If my worldview is simply, and this is something that I touched briefly upon in a lecture that we had for the preparation of the holy month of Ramadan, and I wanted to set that as a background for some of the things that we're going to be discussing, is depending on the circles of influence that you have around you, and depending on your social networks and what you're being exposed to, that's definitely going to have an impact on how you see the world and how you see yourself. If I'm constantly surrounding myself with people that all they care about, and by people, I mean not just physically, and now physically is very limited. So now when you're looking at social media and what we have on our social networks, on social media, who are you following? What are you following? Let this be like a sense of us taking a step back and be like, okay, what am I exposing myself to? What does my feed look like? By the way, that feed, it's feeding you, it's giving you something. You're ingesting some type of information, some type of food, right? What am I being exposed to? The things that we expose ourselves to, and this is something that we pick up in the studies of psychology when it comes to examining habits, and a book that I highly recommend in trying to understand how habits, which could also lead into addictions, how do they work, and how do we engage with the things that we do on a daily basis that suddenly become habits? Why do they become habits, and why do some things also be triggered and actually become addictions? A book that I recommend for that is called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. When you're looking at those things, when you're looking at how those things become habits, it starts off with exposure. It starts off with what am I exposing myself to? And if I'm looking at my screen time on my phone and I'm realizing that I'm spending over 7 hours a day, I'm actually spending more time on my phone than I am spending sleeping, that should be telling. Now, if there's something that we're doing on our phone, we're working on our phone, we're reading on our phone, we're researching on our phone, it's something that's productive, then okay, it's going to influence you in another way. But then when you look at the section that says entertainment or social networking, that's again telling. There's something that we find in ourselves, and I'm going to say this very practically. A lot of times when we look at the holy month of Ramadan, we see this idea of, man, I don't know how to kill time. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and I just want to kill some time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us through the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi in this narration and many other narrations, نَوْمُكُمْ فِي عِبَادَةٍ, that your sleep in the sleep that you're experiencing in this month is worship in itself. So even if you allow your body to replenish or allow your body to rest through sleep, it's probably better for you than simply trying to kill time. Our time is limited. And one of the things that if I came to realize anything in this experience that we've had through the COVID-19 pandemic is how precious time is. When you're looking and you're seeing people that are getting sick, people that are dying, people on the front lines, whether at the hospitals or in other industries that are essential workers, essential people in serving the public, you grow a sense of appreciation for them. And then you realize this is just another thing in life that we're experiencing that, I could get sick and I could die. And the time that we're having indoors and the time that we're having in seclusion could remind us a little bit more of some of our imams that experienced seclusion. Inshallah, we'll touch on this story and then we'll wrap up for the evening. When Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, our seventh Imam, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim, when the Abbasid Caliphate, the authorities decided, we gotta imprison this guy. We just gotta put him away. We can't deal with the possibility of people following him. And we can't deal with all of that's going to happen as an effect of that. We got to shut it down, right? No matter what the imams did throughout history, they just had a beautiful influence on people. People that were just exposed to them in conduct and their behavior, they just gravitated towards them. So Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam, the authorities come and they take him and they imprison him and they throw him into the lowest dungeons of the prison system. The first thing that the Imam does is he turns to God and he says, "Oh Allah, I have been asking you for some time for an opportunity, for more time to serve you and worship you. And now you've given me that. So thank you." You and I, we have pantries full of food, fridges full of fruits and vegetables and meat, Netflix, the internet, Instagram, Snapchat. We have a lot of distractions. The Imam wanted to move away from distractions. And even though he's immaculate, even though he is one of the best people that ever walked this earth on every level, because he chose that for himself out of his free will. You and I have an opportunity right now. And though quarantine is very different than being imprisoned, though some people have been complaining about that, but you and I have an opportunity that we're isolating ourselves. We're distancing ourselves from possible harm, from disease, from illness, from this virus, that inshallah you and your families are all protected from. But there's an opportunity here for you and I. Through these discussions, through these reflections, through this time, and especially now through the holy month of Ramadan, the blessings are just like topping on top of one another. You and I can come out of this much better than we started by having that necessary time to take a step back and reflect. Am I acknowledging my true purpose in being a servant of God and manifesting his attributes on earth? Am I truly holding on to the rope of God and making myself a reflection of what he ordained from Adam all the way till now with our living holy Imam, Hajj Jalal Moughania Sharif, when it comes to this concept, this idea of being a viceroy? You and I, brothers and sisters, we're all ambassadors of God. You and I were all representatives of God in this sense of being human beings. Of course, there are individuals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has elevated through their choice and made them as messengers, prophets, and imams for you and I so that we know what to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending us the messages all the time. Allah is sending us the revelation all the time. It's there. But you and I, do we have the mechanism to perceive it? Yeah, that's inshallah something that we're going to be talking about more tomorrow in regards to prophets, messengers, imams, this divine guidance. How do we receive it? How do we take it? How do we position ourselves? And how do we continuously position ourselves in being the best versions of ourselves possible? Inshallah, over the next several nights, I'm excited to be talking about this worldview, this vision for a virtuous community, and hitting a lot of subjects that are going to, inshallah, really hit home with all of us. Questions that we've had about not just our purpose from the beginning of creation, but also looking into this idea of the institutions in our faith. What are the institutions of our faith, and what role do they play? When it comes to our identity as individuals, from a theological level, how do we look at people that differ from us in school of thought? How do we look at people that differ from us in religion? How do we look at people that have no religion? What's our concept? What do we believe, right? When we look at ourselves as followers of Ahlul Bayt, as Muslims, and we're looking at each category of people, if I'm turning myself from the foundation that we've just established tonight, that I'm committing myself to servitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and becoming a servant of God, acknowledging that purpose, how does that transform my entire engagement with other people around me? How do I look at my neighbor? How do I look at my family? How do I look at my colleagues? How do I look at people that are different than me? What does this trigger for engagement in society? Does religiosity make people more engaged in society or more isolated? Does religiosity and people that are more committed to their faith of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does this make them better people and contributing citizens or members of their society or not? Truly, what does it do? And then when it comes to this whole idea that we have regarding the Imam of our time, the awaited Savior, which is something that goes across many faiths and many creeds, of this idea of an individual coming forth and establishing equity and justice for all of mankind, for all of society. What did that look like for you and I? And is it something that is a sudden trigger or a sudden change of events at the end of times? Is it something that's distant from us, or is it something natural like the rest of life in the movement of something that started a very long time ago and that you and I actually have a role to play in it? Do the things that we believe in necessarily have to be things that we see, whether it be God or it be the Imam or it be other things? When we're looking at all of this, we need to make sure that we're taking a step back, reflecting, and inshallah, we're going to be covering a lot of these things over the next several nights, benefiting from these reflections, inshallah. And I look forward to having this with all of you. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة والتسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.